Hello and welcome to Focus on Liberia. Welcome to yet another edition of our program, Roundtable Africa. Always here with Mr. Edward Amara, Focus on Liberia, West African correspondent, and Mr. Sekou Keller. Sekou is not in today due to family engagement. And I'm stepping in and I'm here to ask the questions. And Mr. Edward Amara will be doing the discussion. Well, welcome. Hit the share button. Edward, there's a terrible sound coming from your back there. What's going on?
Yeah, I think it is me. It's raining here.
Oh, okay. Well, then disregard. Let's manage that. Well, folks, again, Roundtable Africa, Focus on Liberia, broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia, our headquarters. Edward Amara is comfortably seated. We have a very interesting topic for you today, and that topic is Gambian presidential election, the potential comeback of a dangerous dictator. Many of you remember somebody from the Gambia, but Edward is here, and we will bring it all to you. Edward, welcome, another edition. How is Freetown? Is Freetown actually free? How you doing, by the way?
Thank you very much, Mr. Sieh. It's a very interesting topic, and it's something that affects Africa, it affects West Africa, and I'm joining you to welcome folks across the globe so that we can actually analyze and try to present the Gambia situation to the world.
Thank you so very much. Folks, let's go into the discussion right away without wasting time. I want to remind you of a topic, Gambia presidential election, a potential comeback of a dangerous dictator. Yahya Jammeh, after being in power for over 22 years, the people of Gambia got a new president. That president promised that he would be in power for only 3 years, and he was going to relinquish power. But there is an election that is coming and scheduled for this year. We want to go into it, and there's a coalition that is being put together. Our understanding is the dictator, the people of Gambia rejected, is in the mix. What is going on? That is the topic we're trying to discuss. Is the dictator trying to come back under the canopy of another coalition? What is going on? So folks, stay with us here. Edward is making some adjustment. We have some terrible feedback as its end. One that is settled, we'll go into the discussion. But while we wait for Edward, let me let you know who is the current president of the Gambia. Edward, it seems to be that you're having an LEC situation there. This topic is juicy. I want for our people. Okay, thank you. You are in a much better place. We don't hear that feedback again. We can welcome you enough. Again, Edward is focused on Liberia, West African correspondent, and he is also the host of our program, Roundtable Africa. Edward, let's do our usual thing. Please take 2 minutes to give us what is going on in Africa right now. Give us a rundown of the latest developments in Africa, quickly.
Thank you very much. In Africa, a lot is happening. We first checked down to Sierra Leone. It was very unfortunate that this election is in the 3rd day of mourning today. We have a kind of fuel tanker blast in Freetown that killed around 115 people, and some others we are born to first degree level. As I'm speaking, WHO, our health system, and all the partners are seriously involved into working to ensure that most of those who are actually involved into the accident, lives can be saved. And the government announced a 3 days mourning. Today, yesterday, and tomorrow will be the last day of mourning. And we also check down into the Horn of Africa, where we have Ethiopia. In Ethiopia, we are having serious problem with the like of Abiy Ahmed. Abiy Ahmed actually is the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, but he has actually been involved into a war between him and the Tigrayan rebels. And the Tigrayan rebels are actually known as the TPLF, that is the Tigray rebel or the Tigray Defensive Force for the Liberation of the Tigray region. They have actually threatened to take over Ethiopia, especially the capital city, and have definitely sent a signal to the Ethiopian government that if they cannot grant them independence, peace will definitely not be there. UN, AU, and other international bodies are calling for peace to be negotiated between the two governments. And the former president of Nigeria, Olusegun Obasanjo, has actually been sent there. Yesterday, he was questioned by the BBC if whether he's going to be given the green light to do the negotiation, based on what other international media has gathered that the Tigrayan rebels and the Ethiopian government are not willing to enter into any negotiation till they can see who comes out victorious. But Obasanjo said he's a respectable former leader and he believes that he has the integrity and the inspiration to do the successful negotiation of those people. And finally, we head back into Kenya. In Kenya, you have a kind of a school there that was blasted the other time because of certain people who we are denied to attend the football match between Liverpool and Manchester United, in which Liverpool humiliated United by 5 goals to 0. The children retaliated by burning down the dormitory and saying that they have the right to watch games even when it is on Saturday. The authorities of the school have resorted to calling upon the parents, and they are asking them to review the dormitory, and those who are involved into the accident or into the incident will definitely be fished out and punished. So far, so good. These are the important news that are emanating out of Africa.
Thank you, Edward Amara, with the rundown of the latest news from the continent of Africa, our home country. Folks in cyberspace, thank you for joining us. If you are just joining in, this is Roundtable Africa here. I focus on Liberia. As we always try to tell you, I focus on Liberia. We educate, we elevate, and promote all things Liberia, and also we are promoting all things Mama Africa. Our topic for today, the Gambian presidential election, a potential comeback of a dangerous dictator. Well, Edward, we can start this discussion without mentioning who is the head of state of the Gambia. So this is what I want you to do for us. We understand that the current president of the Gambia is Mr. Adama Barrow. Who is he? What is his life story before we go into the discussion?
Thank you very much. Before this time, Adama Barrow was little or less known in the Gambia. He's an entrepreneur or a businessman in short. He spent some of his time in the United Kingdom, where he studies real estate. And he also served one as a security guide in the United Kingdom. And he sometimes in 2016 found himself into the UDP, that is the United Democratic Party in the Gambia, where he served as the treasurer of the party. When the flag bearer of the party was being imprisoned by the dictator by then, known as Yahya Jammeh, Adama Barrow actually took over the leadership of the party. And in the 2016 election, Adama Barrow decided to stand as an independent candidate, and the 7 coalition parties, the 7 parties, independent parties also that were in the Gambia, who had wanted to contest election against Mr. Jammeh, they asked Adama Barrow to run as the flag bearer of the coalition. Since he's an independent candidate, he was asked to run as the flag bearer of the coalition. At the same time, on an agreement that when he wins the election, if he succeeds to ousted President Yahya Jammeh, he's only going to rule for 3 years. At the end of the day, he will hand over power to the coalition. And in that, Adama Barrow consented to the agreement. He ran for the election in 2016. He successfully defeated Mr. Yahya Jammeh by 43 to 36 points of vote, wherein Mr. Jammeh got around 39.6% of the vote. Unfortunately, Mr. Jammeh accepted initially that he has lost the election to Mr. Barrow. Overnight, he negated his promise and said that the election need to be reconducted because the election was held on a fraudulent ground. And he also ordered the country Supreme Court to call for another re-election and recounting of it. The Supreme Court claimed that they cannot conduct the election without having done any investigation into the process that Mr. Jammeh is alleging that it was a fraudulent and is not going to afford it to accept the election. On that backdrop, Mr. Jammeh declare a state of emergency into the Gambia, and Mr. Barrow managed to escape into the Senegal, where he was sworn in 2016 as the president of the Gambia, while Mr. Jammeh also took oath of office as the president of the Gambia. The AU, UN, ECOWAS, and other bodies condemned Mr. Jammeh's claim to the presidency, and they said that his position is null and void, and they are only going to recognize Mr. Adama Barrow as the president-elect of the Gambia. Finally, on the 21st of January 2017, Mr. Jammeh was forced out of the Gambia after a contingent force of Nigerians, Ghanaians, and Senegalese entered into the Gambia, asking for Mr. Jammeh to leave power. With a few amount of army that were available to him, since they are not even up to 1,000, he had little or no option, whether he flee to Malabo, the capital city of Equatorial Guinea. And Mr. Barrow is a married man. He has two wives with 4 kids. And among the 2 wives, all of them are from the Fulani tribe. And it is in an election where we are seeing an incumbent leader is campaigning with 2 wives. Finally, in this 2021 election, they have decided to form a coalition too with the party of the AFRC, that is the party of the defunct and dethroned dictator who is now living into Equatorial Guinea, Malabo, by the name of President Yaya, or the former president of Gambia, Yaya Jammeh. So far, so good. These are some of the information or the brief profile of Mr. Barrow.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Edward Amara. We also know that when he took over, he promised he will rule for only 3 years and turn the country over, and that he promised jobs for the people of Gambia, and that he promised also the rule of law. He promised to establish the Truth and Reconciliation Commission to look to the 22 years of dictatorial rule of Yaya Jammeh. And so there are a lot of things that he promised. Before we go to the questionings here, you think so far are the people of Gambia happy with the promises he made? Is he living by the promises he made so far based on your observation and reporting here?
No, all of those promises were negated by Mr. Barrow. In the first place, the coalition that came with it into power had an agreement with him. Since he was an independent candidate, they asked him to only rule for 3 years, and he's going to hand over power to the coalition. Unfortunately, he said the constitution of Zambia states that a president-elect will serve a term of 5 years, and nobody has the constitutional mandate to ask him to leave power after he has served for 3 years. So that was an indoor agreement that he's not going to respect. Straight away, he went ahead to form the NPP party, that is the National Patriotic Party. And he also promised press freedom. But unfortunately, the press is also not free into the Gambia. And he promised that opportunity will be given to each and every party, a total reformation will be made. And unfortunately, even when he was forming his cabinet, most of the coalition members, or most of the members of the coalition or the coalited party that came with into power, they were definitely neglected. And he ended up appointing people who were actually outside the body of the coalition. And he's one of the few presidents who have sacked 3 vice presidents of it in the few 3 years that they have been ruling. So his promises were definitely not maintained. He negated upon everything, and he abandoned everything. So people are thinking that the human rights activists that they elected, the person whom they confirmed their trust in, they believed that he would have overturned the 22 dictatorial and torturing regime of Mr. Yaya Jammeh, never did anything positive. And we saw in 2017 and even in 2019, serious demonstration was actually called up against him. Over 3 or 4 people died, and he ended up to even sack some people and replacing it, reshuffling cabinets on several occasions when he found out that nobody is in his favor. So he's a kind of controversial, a less known man before this time, a business entrepreneur who has decided to almost continue the same deal of Mr. Jammeh in the Gambia.
So, Edward, are there some good things he's done so far in addition to, we understand he freed nearly all political prisoners that were held by the late dictator Yaya Jammeh? Besides that, any other good thing that he did that the people of Gambia are happy with that you know?
Well, the freeing of the dictators was something that was very precedented, because we all know that when people take over power under circumstances like this, the first thing that they normally do, they free the political prisoners that they may found into prison. And each time they free those political prisoners, it's like trying to buy public sympathy. When they are buying public sympathy for people, they normally tend to free the political prisoner, and that was exactly what Mr. Thank God the rain is off. Okay, that was exactly what Mr. Jami did. He freed the political prisoners. However, he did a lot that we must commend him with. In the first place, because when Mr. James was on the helm of affairs in the Gambia, what he did, he took away the Gambian country out of UN, out of Commonwealth, and he even said the Gambia is no longer a subscriber to the International Criminal Court of Justice that is actually based into The Hague. And he actually created a kind of conflicting situation with places like the Gambia, like Senegal. Senegal was definitely not peaceful with the Gambia, even with around Ghana. Ghanaians, we are not also peaceful. So most of the countries that they share borders with, they condemn his regime, and they tend he ruled the country with iron fist. So when Mr. Barrow came in, he changed all of those situations. We have seen that Gambia once attracted international people who normally go there for tourism, and Gambia was also able to regain its status, like trying to be a recognized member of the United Nations. He also readmitted Gambia into AU and also into ECOWAS, and he managed to be on the helm of affairs. He actually gave peace into the country, and above all, he set up the country's Truth and Reconciliation Commission to investigate the 22 years repressive regime of Mr. Jami. We are little in force was being leveled against the people. A lot of people were killed, homes were destroyed, so families got missing. Some family members do not even know where their sons are today, especially those who are journalists. So he has done a lot. The only thing, he just negated the promises that is made to the Gambia, and he wants to continue his leadership.
Thank you, Edward Amara, Focus on Liberia, West African correspondent, breaking it all down for you. Again, folks, if you are just joining us, this is Focus on Liberia. This is our program, Roundtable Africa. Our topic is the Gambian presidential election, the potential comeback of a dangerous dictator. Edward, why this topic? Why this topic? Let our audience know why this topic.
The Gambia presidential election is something that we are watching with keen eye on Africa. We all know when Mr. Yahya Jammeh seized power since 1996, he overthrew his own uncle, and he ruled the country with letting force, where repressive regime was seen in a consecutive 22 years. There were certain youth today in the Gambia who never knew any president rather than Mr. Yahya Jammeh. A lot of people were being killed. He established a kind of jungle of force into the Gambia, where people who stood against his regime were mutilated, some were raped, some people lost, and some people were even experienced extrajudicial justice. Some people were only heard of being accused, nobody never saw them again. And when Mr. Jammeh was leaving, he stole over 5 million United States dollars from the Gambia by entering the country's coffer. He went into Equatorial Guinea, and currently he's staying in Malabo. And based on the agreement that they had with the government, that he was actually warned not to ever involve into any political affairs into the Gambia. And Adama Barrow, who came in as the angel, the Moses of the Gambia, successfully won that particular election. And he made a pledge to the country that he's going to maintain the social contract, respect every bit of the constitution, and at the same time, he's going to ensure that all those who participated into the 22 years repressive and draconian regime of Mr. Jammeh are going to be brought to book. Unfortunately, because Mr. Barrow negated his contract with the coalition that brought him to power by actually relinquishing power after he has completed his 3 years into office, he decided now to form a coalition with Mr. Yahya Jammeh's party. And Yahya Jammeh was actually warned not to involve into any political affairs into the Gambia. But he formed the coalition according to popular claims by Mr. Jammeh said that was not with his consent, though he's no longer the active president of the Gambia. He's actually staying in Equatorial Guinea, Malabo, but he still has absolute control over the party. And he has never given his blessing to the coalition bid formed by Mr. Barrow and his party. So his party, he's still the presidential flag bearer of the party, and he has the right to contest election. So Mr. Barrow's coalition with his party is nothing that is acceptable, and he's not going to watch at it. However, some political commentators saw this as a kind of ploy, a carefully planned ploy that will one day come back with Mr. Jammeh into the Gambia, because all the investigation of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission suggested that a chunk number of people into the Gambia today, and Mr. Jammeh perpetrated a lot of heinous crime into the Gambia, that they should be brought to book. So Mr. Jammeh, on the other hand, because Mr. Barrow, on the other hand, because he has negated the contract that he has signed with these people, he has negated the contract we have signed with these people, he now decided to form a coalition with them. It means they are trying to lay a foundation for Mr. Jammeh to come. They are trying to lay a foundation for Mr. Jammeh to come into the Gambia. So if ever that particular coalition come into power, it means Mr. Jammeh will have the opportunity to come back into the Gambia. In fact, the Minister of Agriculture and Tourism rightly stated that the international borders of Gambia, something Fatuma Ba stated that the international borders of Gambia are so insecure, the international airport is not under absolute control, so there is a high possibility that Mr. Jammeh can even sneak in and be conducting his nefarious affairs into the Gambia without anybody notice. So the topic is so important.
And Edward, you know, given what you're saying, because this is President Amanda Barrow, who promised that the Truth and Reconciliation Commission would do its work. And in one of his interviews, he even said that Yahya Jammeh will be brought to book, will be investigated. And now he is forming a coalition with Yahya Jammeh's party. And as we speak, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission has not even reached to Yahya Jammeh to even ask him a single question. Is that the truth? Yeah.
Absolutely. He knows that he is now an indictee, and the report of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission was actually submitted to Mr. Barrow in September. And Mr. Barrow, having known that, he knows the implication of him trying to form this coalition, because most of those who he has actually decided to form the coalition with are indictees of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission based on their recommendation that people like that should be indicted. And he knows about this. Now, Mr. Jammeh is a possible indictee for based on the crimes that he committed. And most of the frontrunners of Mr. Jammeh ROC parties today are also indictee. Unfortunately, we have seen a Moses of the country have gone ahead to form a kind of coalition with those who deteriorated the state of Gambia. So people are actually wondering if whether they will be in position to prosecute their own, because any attempt for Mr. Barrow to win, it indirectly means that Mr. Jammeh and his Kahoot are also in power.
So, Edward, what is the political motive of President Barrow here for trying to form or having this coalition with Yahya Jammeh's party, the very Yahya Jammeh who he promised to investigate through the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, along with other indictees, as you mentioned correctly? What is his political motive? What is he up to here? And how are the people of Gambia seeing this move by him? A betrayal or what?
It's a public betrayal, public trust betrayal, based on those who voted for Mr. Barrow publicly. On the 43.36% of those who voted for him, they look at it as a public betrayal. But mind you, Mr. Jammeh still maintained a substantial amount of support into the Gambia. He got 39.6% of the total vote cast, the total valid vote cast. And because Mr. Barrow knows that the coalition, as I said initially, he was a little known politician. He served first as the treasurer of the UDP party. And when the flag bearer of that particular UDP party was arrested and imprisoned by Mr. Jami, Mr. Barrow took over the party, and he stood as an independent party, little known, little recognized, not trusted by the people. But because those who formed the coalition never trusted themselves, they decided to ask Mr. Barrow to run as an independent candidate, but the coalition is going to support him. And if the coalition supported him after he won the election, it was an agreement that he should step down in 3 years' time, another person should take over. But being that he knows that he has violated or negated on the agreement that brought him into power, now he has lost all the supporters of the 6 coalited parties that actually brought him into power. He has little or no option now rather than to fall on Mr. Jami's 39.6% total valid vote card, because Mr. Jami has a kind of 22 years old political party into the country. He ran that particular country on his own whim and caprices for 22 good years, and everybody knows his party. His party is not a very new one, and there are still people who are apologists of the party who sympathize with his ideology. So he knows that if he can lose the 36% of the vote, and he still have 39.6% of the valid vote cast, and based on the popularity that he has managed to gain now, he's still going to retain power. So we are seeing a selfish, unscrupulous presidential candidate here who wants to win the election at all costs, having knowing that he has violated the norms, the culture, the tradition, the laws, everything that qualify him to run as the flag bearer of the coalition. Now he has formed a new political party by the name of NPP, National Patriotic Party, in addition to the AFRC party of Mr. Jami, just for him to still maintain power. And as he rightly said, the victims of Gambia are seeing this as a public betrayal. Those who voted for him, who thought that he's a Moses, is coming to provide him, to emancipate them from the treacherous regime of Mr. Jami over 22 years. Now he has already lost that faith, and people are even fearing that the Truth and Reconciliation Commission will never be respected, because if those who the Truth and Reconciliation Commission recommendations are meant to punish are now in power, nobody, because you cannot be in power and still prosecute yourself.
Thank you very much. So true, Edward. You know, when you are forming a collaboration with indictees, that means when you are elected, chances are that you're not going to prosecute them, because when they win, they will be the one in power. Very valid point there. But Edward, this presidential election that is coming, we understand is scheduled for the 4th of December. My question here is, who are the presidential candidates vying against President Barrow in the December 4th election?
Over 15 political parties actually vowed to go in presidential candidate based on their political qualifications. Unfortunately, only 5 succeeded. And among the 5, we have 3 prominent. One is the head of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, who somehow felt betrayed by Mr. Barrow's intended coalition with Mr. Jami's political party. So he has vowed actually to win the election, and he will ensure that the recommendation of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission are going to be implemented. And if anybody is found wanting into the Barrow's regime who are actually corrupt, they are definitely going to be punished. And they have promised to revive the rule of law into the country, respect female rights, and ensure that education is at its peak, and provide press freedom, and also revitalize the country's economic. And he wants to energize everything to ensure that Gambia will become a competitive nation. We also have another Bankole guy, Bankole Yajo, who is a Rastafarian. He's a Rastafarian. He has actually warned people not to judge him by his physical looks, by his hair, by the way he talks, or whatsoever thing he does. He said people should watch at his manifesto. And he has actually promised to legalize marijuana into the Gambia, claiming that the Gambia is a very poor country, and marijuana is one of the lucrative goods that are actually found into the world. So should he be elected as the presidential candidate of the Gambia, what he's going to do is to legalize the smoking of marijuana into the Gambia, and he will turn it as a commodity into the country, where people can plant it and sell it, and they can also make it as a daily life. He will also even compare what Gambia does, or when you watch at the ton of groundnut that normally, or peanut that Gambia is known widely to be exporting, and you watch at the ton of marijuana that or what you call in Liberia opinion, in Sierra Leone sometimes they call it Java or cannabis sativa. That is why they call marijuana. It's a kind of herbs that people normally smoke and you end up to control your nervous system and makes you to misbehave badly. So he said he's going to legalize that particular thing. He said, should it be legalized like places in Mexico and other places into Latin America where marijuana have been legalized, the Gambia will definitely tend to benefit. And he also promised to ensure that he revive the educational system, provide freedom for women, and does all other things. Then we have another popular presidential candidate by Fatoumata Touré. Fatoumata Touré is a young female activist, and that young female activist has actually been against female genital mutilation into the Gambia. She has promised that should she take over the leadership of the Gambia, she's going to ensure that all FGM, female genital mutilation, is going to be history, because it is serving as a kind of predicament towards women's sexual way of life, and at the same time it's a culture that must be abolished on the continent of Africa, because it poses a lot of health threats, and it also tried to make the society to present itself so foolishly. And she even claims that most of the time when you have female genital mutilation, it makes women to behave indisciplinedly. She have also submitted that. About Mr. Jami and Mr. Barrow has accused her to be somebody who's looking for foreign sympathy. Maybe because of her human rights activism, she's using it as a source of employment. And she also promised that when she took over power into the Gambia, she's going to ensure that she empower women. She claimed that Gambia is a strictly Muslim nation where women's rights are normally violated, because people tend that women should always be relegated to the status of childbearing and wives at home. And the Gambia law does not respect the right of women. Most women are not even entitled to take up positions, because when you watch at the Gambia parliament, only 2 females who are elected representatives, and one of them also, one female is also part of the Gambia local government. She's serving as a councillor. She said all of those things, the statistics are not actually speaking in good favor of the female. Above all, she's going to ensure that women are empowered into the Gambia. If women are empowered into the Gambia, they are going to be in position to compete with men in terms of education and standard. So she's going to revive and re-energize the education system of the Gambia by providing a free and fair platform where women will not only seek for equality, but they will also seek for equity, where they will be treated equally as men, instead of just relying on them to have the same position as men. She also promised that, since she said that Gambia has a culture of Muslim mentality, where they overlook the status of women, she said she's going to change that particular ideology and ensure that women have the free and fair right to involve into any other competition. So these are some of the main candidates that Mr. Jami has against him. And don't be surprised that when it is nearing, Mr. Jami has, or Mr. Barrow has already formed a coalition with Yahya Jammeh's party, and there's a high possibility that the coalition that brought down Mr. Jami may revive itself and seek the downfall of Mr. Barrow.
Thank you so very much, Edward Amara, for that excellent reporting. But Edward, I have to ask, you talk about a female candidate, you talk about the issue she's running on, you also talk about the Rastafarian candidate, the issue he's running on. Now, Mr. Barry, President Barry, who all the focus is on right now, I have 2 questions there. What is he running on right now? Because the platform he ran on, based on your reporting, he has betrayed everything. What is his message now? What is he running on? That's the first question. The coalition that he put together with former President Yahya Jammeh or Dictator Yahya Jammeh's party, is that the only coalition in this particular election that's coming up on December the 4th?
Absolutely. He looks like an abandoned man into the entire election. Never mind, he still maintains absolute control as an incumbent of the government. He is the presidential, he's the active president for now. Okay, Mr. Barrow is running on a policy of continuation, because he has postulated certain policies like trying to encourage the Gambians to be self-reliant. That is one. And he has also managed to produce certain amount of press freedom into the country, though most people who were demonstrated against him actually met their early death, like 3 people were also being killed. And they also managed to sack most of the corrupt leaders that were actually within within Gambia, or that found themselves lording the affairs of Gambia when Mr. Jammeh was in power. He has managed to sack all of those people. That is one. Then secondly, he thinks that Gambia need a kind of total reconciliation. If Gambia is to reconcile themselves and seek for permanent peace, he believed that then the Gambians should also embrace most of those people who form part and parcel of Mr. Jammeh's political party. He also claimed that not all of them we are evil. Some actually we are seeking the interests of the people. So all of them cannot just be abandoned. If the report of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission should be respected and taken into high esteem, then the party should not be overlooked. It shouldn't be watched like a kind of cannibal party where people were only meant to destroy the life of Gambians. So he have also made that suggestion that forming a coalition with Mr. Jammeh's party is not an indication of betrayal. Rather, it's a solid attempt to reconcile the country based on the old womb so that all bygones should be bygone. That is what he's preaching.
Wow. I hope the people of Gambia are going to buy and stomach that. And Edward, you know, African countries, the greater percentage of the demographic, or I mean the population there, having to be the youth. What are the young people of Gambia are saying in all this, and what are they saying about President Barrow in this election?
Well, most young people are furious with Mr. Barrow, to be honest. Although, when you watch at his political campaign, because yesterday was the official date of the political campaign that started on the 9th, and I think campaign will be until the eve of what? Until the eve, or based on the declaration of NEC, when the election will be conducted on the 4th, based on the dispensation of NEC. I think the young people who are politically conscious, the young people who know about the heinous crime being committed by Mr. Jammeh, are watching at the entire situation as a public betrayal, because this particular president actually came into power to prosecute Mr. Jammeh and his cahoot who contributed to the downfall of Gambia, imprisonment. Some people lost their lives. So when they are reading the holistic report about the Gambia, you watch at the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. This man committed a lot of crimes, too little in force. He raped, he killed, he imprisoned people, and a lot of people up to now, since they were arrested because of crimes known and unknown. Nobody knows their whereabouts. So the coalition was actually meant to bring these people to book. Unfortunately, Mr. Barrow has decided to form a coalition with Mr. Jammeh. So the demographic of Gambia, those who actually felt the pain of Mr. Jammeh, are watching at Mr. Barrow as a kind of betrayal, and they are seeing his presidential candidates, any attempt for him to come into power, it's like Mr. Jammeh is going to come back into power. And you're also watching at the victims here. There are people who are deeply wounded. There are people who do not even know themselves. Some people, Mr. Jammeh rendered them impotent. They lost their manhood, claiming that should he allow such people to continue existing, if ever they give birth to children, their offspring may end up to even stand up against his leadership. So most people lost their eyes, some people lost their limbs, some people lost their arms. Some women were raped in public forum, and he used a well syndicated group to commit heinous crimes against people. So they are watching and the victims are crying against. So they are watching at Mr. Barrow as a kind of potential betrayer who should be encouraged. But don't forget that there are other people who he has managed to buy overnight because he's the president in power. So there are still substantial amount of young people who are actually benefiting directly from his leadership now, who may tend to still sympathize with his idea, because maybe they never enjoyed what they are now currently enjoying under Mr. Jammeh's political, or under Mr. Barrow's political dispensation. So during Mr. Jammeh's political dispensation, they were under suppression. So they are thinking that should another political party come into power, they're definitely going to lose those chances. So the young people are divided, but most of them are actually disgruntled.
Thank you so very much. Excellent reporting there, Edward Amara. For those of you who do not know, Edward Amara is based in Freetown, Sierra Leone. He is focused on Liberia, West African correspondent. He is a Liberian. He having to live in Freetown, Sierra Leone, if you don't know. And any of you wish to contribute anything to Edward for the excellent contribution he's making, reporting on the issues of Africa, look in the scrolling text. There's a way you can reach out to to us to make any contribution to Edward for the excellent reporting that he's making. Edward, something I will want to bring to you. Please talk on that very quickly so that we can take a break and bring in the comments of our viewers, which is, I'm curious about the ages of the candidates that are running. This is key, right? Yahya Jammeh was very young when he took over. I understand President Barrow is about 56 years old right now. In Liberia, we have Georgia, who just turned 55. And the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, I believe he's in his late 40s. But if you look at the history of the region, Liberia, we have, Todman and Tobot. These people were very, people in advanced age. Even in what you call Guinea. Guinea presidents have been people in very advanced age. The same thing with Sierra Leone. Not until President Bio took over. I'm curious, because the youth are always sitting back. Tell me about the ages of the candidates in this election that is coming.
Mr. Barrow is 56. Maybe arguably he's young.
Okay.
Based on what we are seeing. Arguably he's young, and he knows a lot of things that young people like us are actually undergoing into Africa. So he's not somebody in his 60s, but you can see arguably when you watch at Gambia's life expectancy, it is around 40 for 50 for men, 55 for female, something like that. So you are seeing that he's now living on borrowed life, because he's now more than the life expectancy into the Gambia. Then you watch at the Rastafarian, the man is 46.
Okay.
So being 46, I think he's been watched at as a youth, and people actually believe in him. Those who are buying his ideology, especially like the ghetto boys, because most of them have been raided on several occasions. They term their activities as illegal. So if they have seen somebody just from the blueprint coming to market and legalize their mentality, so you must understand that young people are also behind him. And the female candidate is in her late 30s. She's not yet 40, but in her very late 30s, because she had refused to reveal her age. But based on popular observation, she actually refused to reveal her age. But when you watch her, she's either in her in her late 30s or in her early 40s. She is also a very young person, and she has actually been criticized because of her hairstyle. Because people have seen she have a kind of hairstyle that is completely bad. So people are actually judging her based on her appearance. And as I rightly stated, the Gambia is a strictly Muslim.
What are they saying about her, Edward? Why are they saying about her? Because
she's not dressed like an African woman, and her dressing it does not look religious, and she's been watched as a kind of radical or anti-social person or a social rebel, because the Gambia is known to be a Muslim country, and you know how Muslim women dress. They dress into that of their veil, and you must maintain your hair. Unfortunately, this lady is completely barbed, just the way you are seeing my hair. So they think and feel that she should be condemned, and the leader that shouldn't be allowed to lead the Gambia, since her hairstyle is not a resemblance of a female. So they are thinking that she cannot be a very good example of a leader, since she's not even presentable like an African woman, and she has not managed to present her hair as a Muslim, as a female Muslim. So she has actually also been condemned on that part. And you watch at the Truth and Reconciliation Commissioner, he's in his late 60s. So he's the aged person among them. So they are not all too far away from knowing what Africans are actually undertaken. But the youngest person among them could be the female candidate, that is Fatuma Toure, then followed by the Rastafarian Bankole, then come in Mr. Barrow, and finally the Truth and Reconciliation candidate, who knows almost every investigation that was being done in respect of Mr. Jammeh's 22 years old regime. And he wants that each and everybody who participated into the killing of those people should definitely be brought to book. So he's using that by claiming that should Mr. Barrow be elected into power, trust me, all the wounded people, those we have violated, the women who are raped, those who lost their family, all their woes is going to be into vain. So on that backdrop, he thinks that if he comes into power, he will be the best person to lead the Gambia and ensure that everybody pay for their price.
Edward Amara is our West African correspondent. We will take a short break quickly here. It will be very short, and we will come to your comment. Don't go anywhere. We want to hear from you. You are very important. We are doing this because of you. Stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
At Focus on Liberia, we discuss everything Liberia, from education to politics, arts and culture, entertainment, agriculture, history, religion, family, and technology. Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Dennis Jah.
And I am Ansony Sieh, sitting in for Sekou Keller, along with my partner here, Mr. Edward Amara, our West African correspondent and co-host of our program that is ongoing right now, Roundtable Africa, where we bring you the issues happening in the homeland of Africa. Let's read some comments quickly. Let's hear from Joel Tall jumps in. Good afternoon to all. Joel Tall, we say good afternoon. Thanks for watching. Continue to share the show. This is important. Amen Soiree, good afternoon. I'm watching you from Europe. Thank you so very much for joining us from all the way Europe to hear about the continent of Africa. Let's hear from Mohammed Vamba Kroma. Thanks you so much. That person writes, that's why they do to free political prisoners. Similar things happen in Guinea right now just to buy sympathy. Let's hear from Larry Kennedy. Larry writes, Africans are their worst enemies. The thought of Jammeh returning to the thought of Jammeh returning to the Gambia is the height of absurdity. That person, that is Larry, writes. Let's hear from Mr. Logan here, right? Where is ECOWAS in all days? Good question. Let's hear from Logan again. He writes, I hope Liberians are listening, especially those who want Ellis to go as VP to JMB. He putting his Liberian politics in this African matter. Liberia is part of Africa, so maybe he should. Amen again. African one, or African one is our problem. Can we learn? Hey, Amen, take your time to write a comment so we can read it better. We value your contribution here. Take your time, brother. Take your time to write a comment. Mr. Washington Boka, a dear friend of mine, thank you for your in-depth analysis. Focus on Liberia West African correspondent. But on a serious note, I think it will be a misstep for the Gambia if people through that could allow Yahya Jammeh to resurface or engineer political happenings on the ground. Let's hear from Logan saying he's excellent, Edward. He's just amazed, impressed with your reporting. Let's hear from Washington again. I think Gambia, in terms of women participation in active politics and decision making in other sectors of the country, is far, far behind other African countries. I will relate to that probably. Let's hear from Farifin Chi Samwaro. I hope I got that right. Are we saying the majority of Gambians are stupid? If they choose him, it's their choice. The issue of choice is big everywhere. Mr. Edward Amara, you just listening to the comments clinically, but I want to throw this in for you to respond. Is there any favorite this upcoming election? Anybody who the popular people think is going to win? I mean, who is the popular choice here? Who is the favorite here? Who is forced to win this upcoming December 4th election in Gambia? Do you know?
Well, based on prevailing circumstances, Mr. Barrow has the potential to win the election.
Wow.
Except if the coalition that brought him to power decided to form a coalition against him. Maybe it will be very difficult because, mind you, Gambia have a simple majority system. They first pass the poll system, and they do in a form of marble. They do not come with ballot papers that we do here. They come in a form of marble and they put it into the box, and it is those marbles that they will count at the end of the day. So it's a simple majority vote. First pass the poll system, even when it is 100%. Then you have different other candidates who are actually going to the vote. Let's assume that the vote now is 100%, and you have 7 candidates who are actually bowing. So if you have 10%, 12%, 14%, 15%, another person has 25%, the 25% person win the election. It is not absolute majority. It is first past the poll system. It doesn't depend how many people actually are involved into the election. It just depends how many votes you have against the other people. It is not absolute majority. So Mr. Barrow, based on his popularity as the incumbent president, and at the same time his critical and absolute move to coalesce his party with that of the defunct Mr. Jammeh, who has 39% of the total valid vote cast by then. If they come together, I can assure you that he may likely win the election. However, if we can have a strong coalition, like what happened in the state of Mr. Jammeh, they come back together and form a coalition, because you cannot present yourself as an independent candidate against an incumbent and you expect yourself to win. So the best thing that can outstate him out of power for now is when there is a grand coalition being formed against him, as in the case of Mr. Jammeh. But fortunately enough, Mr. Barrow has succeeded to form a coalition with Mr. Jammeh. So that is the problem. For now, he is the favorite.
Edward, it's obvious there, the two most popular persons in Gambia, and as well as the two most popular political parties coming together to go in an election where, according to you, the other candidates, they have issues with them, especially the female candidate who is being seen as a social rebel, who does not dress like a typical Muslim or African woman. We know the Gambia is very, very religious, very, very religious. And the other candidate, the Rastafarians, talking about trying to legalize marijuana and all that country being predominantly, Muslim. I don't see their chances. Now, the other guy, like you said, who is with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, if they can form a coalition, then he can provide a sharp contrast with Mr. Amadou Barrow, and then maybe he will have a chance. But Edward, I want you to comment on this, though. I like what you just reported, that in Gambia, it's a simple majority. So if the election were held today, even if Ansony said, should you get a single vote above the other candidates, I'm the winner. I mean, that will save a lot of money. That will save a lot of rerun or runoff, whatever way you want to put it, that we always have in Liberia. This is too much money. I think that is a brilliant good idea. What do you make of it? I mean, how can Africans, try to use this, because it will save a lot of money? What do you think?
Absolutely. When you have a simple majority, that is the first past the poll system, we are in even a single total valid vote cast, more than your colleagues can actually give you the position as the person elect. It is going to save money, because you are going to have the second ballot system. And election is one of the most expensive undertaking into any African country. Maybe we can reconsider ourselves and try to think about such thing like that. But the proponents of the absolute majority may want to know the most popular candidate who has majority of the people's support to actually vote be elected as the president, because they are thinking that, let's assume that, what are the case of Mr. Jammeh's departure from power? He got 39.6% of the vote, and the president-elect got 43.36% of the vote. If it were in places like Sierra Leone or Liberia, they will not allow you to vote, because you have to have 55% of the total vote per valid vote cast. You must have over 50% of the total valid vote cast. That will give you an absolute majority. So that will tell you that majority of the people whom you are governing actually have given you the support. That could be one. It could be people that you are the most popular candidate who was elected actually for the position. By the end of the day, it is going to dwindle the economy. Maybe we should learn to understand that once somebody is elected, we should all accept him as our own president, rather than seeking for absolute majority when it is going to dwindle down our economy. So in time of popularity, the system is the absolute majority system is good. But when it comes now to the financial undertaking, the absolute majority is absolutely expensive. Majority, which is less expensive because you're only going to watch at first past the post system.
Thank you, Amara. Folks, in cyberspace, this Thursday, which is tomorrow, on our program, Tough Talking Thursday. My partner, Dennis Jar, will be here with his outstanding partner and a guest. That guest is Anthony Morayakula of the ANC. The topic, the ANC, Elisana Cummings, and the CPP. You do not want to miss it. It will be all political. Also, coming on this Sunday, the 14th, we have a debate. Yes, focus on Liberia got you one. His name is Rabor Glady Gagwa Jr. He is a free agent, but he will be debating Mr. R. Hassan Fadiga, who we understand is Cummings leaning. The topic? Cummings' decision-making and plans. Rabor Gagwa thinks Mr. Cummings is yet to convince him on decision-making and judgment, and he's not sure Cummings has good plans for Liberia, and if he does, he's not sure how good they are. Now, Mr. Hassan Fadiga is not buying that. So we have debate. You do not want to miss it here at Focus on Liberia on Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. I will be here, have the questions, and my partner Deneja will also be comfortably seated. Folks, we will give you our closing here very quickly and take leave of you. But before we do that, I have to show you this quickly, and then we will be wrapping things up. Edward got something to share with you before he takes leave of us. So watch. All right, Edward, I come back to you. Every good thing must come to an end. Excellent reporting, by the way. So the election is on the 4th of December. Given why you have reported that things are like in, President Amadou Barrow's favor, should he win, what would be the implication? Given that he's now formed a coalition with Janjan Yami, the dictator that was also out of power, and that the Truth and Reconciliation Commission was meant to investigate him, and some indictees are having to be part of his government and his party. What is the hope for justice for the thousands of people who suffer mayhem under the hands of Yahya Jammeh? What are the implications of a potential victory for this president and the people of Gambia?
Well, that takes us back to our headline. The Gambia election, a potential return of a dangerous dictator. Should Mr. Barrow win, trust me, Mr. Barrow, the coalition may somehow compel him to grant presidential pardon to Mr. to Mr. Jammeh, claiming that we are seeking for what? A kind of general reconciliation for the country. And in one or two ways, Mr. Jammeh may have done something positive for the Gambia. So they wouldn't want to set a very bad precedent. So his party is going definitely to seek for what? Presidential pardon. And once his presidential pardon is granted to him, he could be seen in the presidential seat. That is why they are not only fighting for the presidential position, but they are also fighting for the parliamentary position, where they may have the opportunity to render decision in favor of Mr. Jammeh. Because if Mr. Jammeh is arrested and sent to the Hague, a lot of heads are going to roll. And one of those heads could be like those who are popularly supporting Mr. Barrow today, because they know exactly what is at stake for them. If they lost the election to another candidate who would be willing to take up the report of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, they are not only going to see Mr. Jammeh going to the Hague, but most of them are also recommended candidates for prosecution into the Hague. So something is at stake. The victims, are going to still maintain their suffering. The culture of impunity is going to be established, and Mr. Jammeh may definitely come back into the Gambia and expect a kind of acrimonious situation to be going on. Maybe anybody can copy his bad example and do something wrong and still be granted presidential pardon. So let's hope and pray and see how the election will go peacefully.
Well, folks, this is how we'll come to the end of this, another edition of Roundtable Africa here, as always, with Sekou Keller, who is not here today due to family engagement, and I'm sitting in. Edward Amara broke everything down in pieces for us analytically, and you can't get this anywhere else other than focus on Liberia. The song that closes us says, "We are all Liberians, and Liberians are African too." That is why we brought you Roundtable Africa. Join us next Wednesday for another exciting topic, and tell us thank you for doing this for you to know what is happening in the homeland of Africa. Bye-bye, and we love you all. Thank you, Edward.
We are